So this question looks like it's going to be a simplify question. And again, I love to, have some sense of what strategy I may need to use before even reading the question. And the reason why I say simplify for this particular question without even reading it is that the simplify strategy typically works for questions that are between 1 and 3 lines long, right? So this one's about 2.5 lines long, and that has either an expression or equation in the question, right? So we definitely have an equation in this question. So those are the two reasons that I would say, hey, this is probably a simplify question. So when I identify that it's a simplify type of question, what I'm looking at is, well, what is the equation that's been provided? So I'm going to write that down. So 2x squared minus 6x plus 2y squared plus 2y equals 45. Now, because I don't know exactly what to do with this right now, and technically I could say that it is fully simplified. There are no like terms here, so technically it is simplified in one sense. I'm going to now read the question to see, well, what can I actually do with this equation? So the question says, in the xy plane, the graph of what I just wrote down is a circle. Okay, now that's very valuable to know. What is the radius of the circle? Well, the circle equation looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So if I can get this to look like this, right, it'll be easy to figure out what the radius or the r value is. But how do I do that? Because obviously it's not already in that format. And that's the hint on how to simplify this. I need to complete the square for this equation so that I can make it look like the circle equation. So how do we do that? So first of all, we focus on the x terms alone. We pull out a GCF here, which I'm going to just say is 2. You'll see why in a second. I'm not going to pull the x out because what I want inside my parentheses, I want to be able to factor a trinomial into a squared binomial. So I'll have x squared minus 3x. So what we do here is we say, well, what's the middle number here? It's negative 3. What's half of that middle number? Well, it'd be negative 3 over 2. And then what is that squared? Well, that would be 9 over 4, which means I add 9 over 4 here. And I close this parentheses off, and we'll see how all this works within a few seconds here. I do the exact same thing with my y values. So I'm going to pull out my 2 here, which leaves me with y squared plus y. Again, what's half of the number here? Well, there's no number in front of the y, which makes it a 1. So half of that is 1/2. If I square 1/2, I get 1/4. So I'm going to add 1/4 here. And then on this side, I have my 45. But in order to balance this equation, I have to take note of, well, the fact that I added this 9/4 here. Now, I add this 9/4 into the equation, but really there's a 2 out in front of it, which means what I really added was 18/4. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Because if I were to distribute this 2 back across, this is not really just a 9/4, it's an 18/4. And then for here, I added this 1/4, but because of this 2 out in front of it, that's really a 2/4 or 1/2. But I'll keep calling it 2/4 so we have the same denominator. So I have to combine these values. So what is 45? In fact, I will change this. 18/4 is the same as 9 over 2, and 2/4 is the same as 1 over 2. So I'd have 45 plus 9/2 plus 1/2, right? So these guys turn into 10/2. But I need to rewrite this 45 as a fraction over 2, so I'm going to call it 90/2. Hopefully that makes sense. 90 over 2 plus 10 over 2 is equal to 100 over 2. And 100 over 2 is equal to 50. Okay, so here's my new equation. 2, and then x squared minus 3x plus 9/4 plus 2, y squared plus y plus 1/4 is equal to 50. Now, when I simplify this, this is going to turn into 2, and then x minus 3 halves squared plus 2y plus 1 half squared equals 50. So this is just part of the completing the square process, where the factored form of this trinomial, we made it a perfect square, is what we did here. And the term here, just as a shortcut, will always be whatever that half of the middle term was initially, right? So that's where we got the negative 3 halves from and where we get the 1 half from. Now, lastly, I should be able to divide everything by 2 here. Right, so this 2 crosses out with this 2 here, and makes that 50 a 25. So I now have x minus 3 halves squared plus y plus 1 half squared equals 25. Now 25 is in the r squared position, which means that, I'll just write it up here, r squared equals 25. So when we square root both sides, we get r is equal to 5. And therefore, the correct answer here is choice A.